Welcome to Real Conversations with Patricia Baranovsky-Schneider, the podcast that takes you on a journey around the world to meet some of the most inspiring and accomplished individuals. Discover their stories, uncover invaluable business lessons from their paths to success, and gain exclusive insights on how to apply their strategies to elevate your life and business.
Hello, and welcome to Real Conversations with Patricia. I'm your host, Patty Baranowski-Schneider. Today, I'm joined by Trent Smock, a behavioral coaching expert. So welcome, Trent. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am from Indiana originally. I came out to Arizona, went to school at IU. Came to Arizona in the early 80s. My brother was here. Have a psychology degree. Not much you can do with that except sell, I guess. So I got basically came to Arizona to find a job. I could stay with my brother. I had gone overseas for a while, and it was Indianapolis, Indiana, or Phoenix, Arizona. So I hadn't really been to Phoenix. I've been in Indianapolis. And so I took a flyer, came out here, got a job selling dictation equipment, and that started my sales career, if you will, and I got into computers and mini computers, and then this is the condensed version, of course. Then was in high tech and some number of startup companies when the internet and all that stuff was happening, and then ended up running a small company in Phoenix, Arizona, in the pool industry. It was what they call in-floor cleaners.
Okay.
The pop-up heads that push dirt around.
Okay.
And all those manufacturers happen to be here in Arizona. So I did that, and then the short story there is that I was exposed to psychometric surveys and behavioral surveys. And I had a friend who had a distribution, he was a distributor. I bought the license, used it, really liked it. Had a big impact on my self-awareness, my ability to understand other people, reflect on my leadership style. And a quick story is, president of a small company, thought I was a pretty big deal. Everybody's coming into your office, waiting for you to make the decision for them. So, it's an ego stroke when you're young. Went on vacation, came back, and nobody did anything. And it made me think, and I'll use a quote that I found many years ago, but, what change in you would make the biggest difference in them? So I learned there that, it's really about how you interact with people. Leadership isn't about telling people what to do. It's about empowering them and so forth and so on. So I bought a behavioral license, and I was pretty well networked in the Phoenix community, which is where I am in the high tech industry. So I use those connections to just hang up my shingle and tell people about what we do and what I did, basically, and how behavior impacts performance, and how learning and knowing and understanding the behavioral tendencies of people that you are hiring, and of course, populating in your company, have a significant impact, obviously, on how the organization performs, how individuals perform, how the teams perform. And I've been doing this now 30 years. I was very lucky. Someone gave me a large insurance company called AIG. I'll just say the rest is kind of history. So I have a lot of clients in the financial services industry. I have branched out and created my own products, sales process, and my own coaching process. So I do a fair amount of executive coaching, which is great because there's a saying, if people don't pay, they don't pay attention. You've probably heard that. And so that's what I'm doing. And okay. The reason I'm doing podcast is, sorry for the long answer, but the corporate environment, I've been very fortunate that when I first started, I got in with a senior executive, and that senior executive brought me in at other companies. They referred me to other companies, so I didn't have to go through the typical human resources avenue It was really with people who could make, the financial decision. So doing that over a long period of time, it's been great. I've had really two tremendous clients, but really want to kind of transition to helping people help themselves. So I have a new program called Coach You First. I've already sold that to a couple of my larger clients, but I really want to not slow down as much as I want to work with individuals where I can have the biggest impact.
It's actually ironic when you mention, because I work in, I do IR, PR marketing, but IR obviously is in the, it's in the financial.
I looked at your background, by the way, just so you know that.
That's okay.
You do a lot of different things.
But I know, like for me, I've been doing this 35 years, and I always treat every client like they're my baby, and I put 150%. And a similar thing with me, I was actually in an accident, and I was kind of out of the loop for a while, and someone else was, running the company. But a lot of people see it as a paycheck only. They don't put in the effort that we put in. So I could totally get that. But now moving on, let's talk about
sorry about that long intro.
No, it's okay. Now, regarding your journey, can you share your personal journey from being an athlete and entrepreneur to becoming a behavioral coach, and what sparked your passion for helping leaders transform their influence?
Well, that's a good question. I did play two sports in college. I did get drafted in the NFL, but in the late rounds. Spent my summer goofing off, so that didn't work out. Had a psychology degree, so really understood that. Over time, having when in the high tech boom, I was in a handful of startup companies. So I was the VP of sales with two people.
Okay.
But I had the card. So I just was on some small boards in the technology industry. I just I just liked helping people. Always would get a lot of referrals to Trent. Hey, Trent's a nice guy and he'll help you. And so people would always call me and, pick my brain. I would always go to coffee with them. And I did that for years. Lots of times people didn't even pay for the coffee. And so I just really enjoyed that. Maybe the transformational component was when I ran that small company. And I just learned I'm a pretty, no one has ever accused me of not having an ego. And so I just really learned that it really, and I stole this line from someone else somewhere, but it's really about not what I do, but it's about me making other people powerful, right? And helping people do that. So that's when I got into that transition and the behavioral information just gave me so much knowledge, and it's used the same tool for 30 years and just the ability to kind of do something, not that other people can't do, but just to really help people reflect in the mirror and get them to think differently, ultimately.
Yeah, it's funny because in the marketing world, I always tell clients, everybody always says, they talk about themselves, the ego, but it's not about you. It's about who you're servicing.
Yeah,
and
right.
It's 100% like helping, kind of like you help me to help you, so helping them see the big picture. I mean, that's probably why people connect with that and say, okay, let me refer him to somebody else because it helped me, because not everybody does that.
Well, it's, we're kind of born selfish, I guess, and we're all kind of me monsters, as my wife says sometimes. And so just helping people help themselves. I mean, my coaching philosophy is really pretty simple. Helping you define, get absolute clarity on what it is that you want.
Right.
That's harder than you think. And then help you overcome the barriers that are stopping you from getting there. Because if you ask people, what do you want, or what's your New Year's resolution? Most people can kind of rattle off, get in shape, but it's not getting in shape. It's the feeling that you get from getting in shape. So, not sure if that answered your question, but.
Yeah, no, it's great because it dissects and helps them get to the real core of what it is. Yeah, good stuff. Right. So now tell us, what's your definition of leadership influence, and how does it differ from traditional concepts of power and authority?
Well, you said the key word, power and authority. Nobody, old school is basically dictatorial.
Right.
Most organizations say that they're a cultural people first environment. They're not.
Yeah.
Um, Culture is departmental for me. So whoever you live with is the culture that you have.
Right.
I have a very large client, a Canadian client, bad culture. They say all the right things and don't even come close to it. So it's the flavor of the day or flavor of the month.
Right.
So people don't buy in, which I hate that term. Shouldn't say hate, but don't care for that term. So I think leadership is helping other people be successful. And quick story, worked with a senior executive of a large financial company, had 600 people in her group. And as I was coaching her, okay, well, what do you want? She goes, well, I want to be a senior VP. So we dissected that, and it took us a couple of months. But how do you get that? Do you get that through networking and kissing behind, or do you get that by demonstrating that you can lead and empower people who are capable of getting to the next level? I think that's probably the better strategy, which is what we took and she took. And there was a whole transformation in her people because she stopped. I said, quit doing their work.
Yeah.
Right. So that's my strategy. It doesn't fit with everybody, but fortunately for me, I don't have a bunch of knucklehead clients, and it's either I don't attract or I'm lucky enough to find people that they either get kind of what I do. People get what I do or they don't.
Right.
As a leader in how they lead. So
yeah.
that's
It's actually a good thing because I know, like, I'm glad that you're dissecting it enough for people to do what they're passionate about, say.
right.
Because a lot of companies, like I remember back in the day, right out of school, I had to work my way up the corporate ladder. I started as a receptionist, worked my way up the ladder. And then I saw other people, it was like they had college, zero experience, but now they're getting the position up here. Meanwhile, I'm down here, and it's like, I have all this, experience, but it's people, years ago, I'm hoping that it's changed now, but years ago, people weren't saying, well, who's the better fit for this? It's like, who has the degree, who knows somebody, and that's it. But that doesn't mean it's the right people,
No, it doesn't. And it unfortunately, it works that way. It's, you've heard the saying, it's not what you do or it's who you know.
Yeah.
By the way, my first client, AIG, there was the lady who ended up becoming the president started as a receptionist.
Good.
So 30 years later, now she's retired, but it's
But you're helping people not see the title, but see what's your goal? Why do you want that title? What does it fulfill for you, and how do you get there?
well, when we're young, we think we know stuff, but we don't. We just don't have that perspective, right? And it's like trying to teach one of your kids. I can save you a lot of time if you just listen to me, but they have to experience themselves. So it's just always about people. 100% of the time, it's always about people, and they're either following you or they're not. And you can make people do things, but it's not sustainable.
Right.
So would you rather want to do it or have to do it? So it's just the coaches the executive people that I've worked with that have done the work make a mind shift, right? They stop trying to tell people and what to do, because you know this. People, that's why I really created coaching first, is because all these sales managers were telling people what to do and then complaining that they don't take initiative. But they didn't give them the confidence and the resources and the freedom to do their job. So
yeah. Well, it's funny, like totally unrelated, but I can totally relate. I went to Catholic school and I had strict parents who you had to get 100, and we had so much work, but you were so fearful that if I didn't get 100 on this, and I had a lot of homework, 7 classes, each one was like an hour and a half of homework each night. I mean, it's just insane. But you never taught me to really want to learn this, or how, make it in a way that makes me understand it. So, you learned everything to pass the test, but here I am decades later, I don't remember half of that stuff because she didn't make me really want to learn it and be a part of it and feel proud that I accomplished this. It was more like I passed this. Oh my God, thank God. Now moving on to the next one.
It's
So
funny.
making people involved in it is key.
It's funny you say that. My wife grew up Catholic, and we were having some not religious, but we were having dinner last night with a friend who was in town. We're doing some work and got on that subject, and she's like, I don't feel like I, as a Catholic, really learned religion because she was doing the test all the time.
Yeah.
So I don't know. The world's a wacky place,
Oh, yeah.
and I'm just hoping that there's a certain kind of person who kind of understands what I do, and
They have to be open to accepting.
Well,
change,
they have to be. I came up with this. I want someone with a touch of arrogance and a dose of humility. So that's kind of my ideal.
They're out there.
Coach. Yeah, well, if they're willing to go, right?
Yeah. Now, your client example highlights an incredible transformation. So, what are some of the key steps that leaders need to take to achieve similar breakthroughs in their own leadership journeys?
Well, I have 4 rhythms. I kind of just printed them out as it relates to so that I could reference them for everyone who was interested. My experience has been as an athlete, you there's a level of discipline that is required. It's not asked. It's not an option to come to practice or not.
Right.
But I think fundamentally you have to change your thinking is the first thing, and that's a difficult thing to do, is change your internal narrative, right? So think about your thinking. I call it your story. It's your internal narrative. So it's the way that you talk to yourself. It's the truth with which you talk to yourself. We can't control everything. I mean, there are certain reactions. If somebody slaps you, you have a reaction. You don't have a choice on how to respond to that. You just don't.
Yeah.
But in life, I've been married 38 years. I would be lying if I said if I said I never went to the dark side, right? So, but I've learned over time and helped other people that you don't have a choice that you go to the dark side. You do have a choice if you stay there, right? And so that's where thinking about your thinking and your internal narrative is so critical. And then part of the story is, I have a saying, well, just because you believe it doesn't make it true.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, politics and all this crazy stuff that's going on, just because you believe it, facts are not, feelings are not facts.
Right.
So that's a component. And these are things that they don't have to be, in sequence. They just have to they've kind of laid them out that way. The third step is breaking old patterns. Not to get too psychological, but we are really a product of our childhood. We're really still just big kids. And I think anyone who would be listening, if they looked at their relationships, we're just kind of children still.
Yeah, big kids.
Pardon me?
Big kids, yep.
Yeah, big kids that have more money, I guess. I don't know. But breaking a pattern is a hard thing to do, and there's all kinds of books on those kinds of things. But you have to do them, just in small increments. You don't eat the whole elephant, so to speak. Again, bad cliche, but so that's the the third component, breaking that patterns, and then you have to. As a combination, then, if you can think about your thinking, if you can change your internal narrative, if you can tell yourself the truth, then you can make decisions that serve you and your family, right? And not you, but you and your family. Mm-hmm. And that includes your job. And it's just making decisions that are best for your life, right? And not for you selfishly.
Right.
And it's a challenge. We're not perfect at it, but
Right.
it gives us a better chance.
We're all a work in progress.
Yeah, yeah. I say life is just one big workshop.
Yeah,
So
so many people on their last words, they're still figuring it out,
well, they're still figuring out, and then it's too late,
Yeah.
right? And I don't know what your faith is, but this life is temporary. And when you get to the end, it's too late. So that's how that's kind of the format.
Right.
I try, and so in Coach You First, Coach You First is really just a simple process to solve your problems by overcoming your barriers, right? It's simple solutions, right? But I have a saying, the issue is never the issue.
Mhm.
Okay, so am I really selling Coach You First a way to solve your own problems that are as a simple repetitive process to overcome life's challenges, right? It's really, what's the problem? Is it the real problem? What is the clarity? Why am I not able? What are my barriers, which are personal 9 times out of 10? And then what are the solutions for that? But I'm not really doing that. What I'm really doing is helping people think differently. That's really what I'm doing. But you can't. That isn't a program.
Right. Yeah. Well, no one will sign up for that.
Nobody sign up for it, that's for sure. Anyway, that's a long answer, but
No, but it is true. Like I even just, it's always a joke where it's negative Nancy and people are just negative and always see the bad and everything, blah, blah, blah. And it's like just giving that little shift about, yeah, it's a rainy, crappy day, but it's going to make the leaves, the flowers bloom and the rainbows. Like you can always find the happiness in something, but it's just a matter of making people see things a little different. Like I know somebody who's just 100% negative, 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. And it's horrible.
It's exhausting.
Yeah. And it's like, you can be a little happier in life if you just take small steps and find something to be happy about. Like you can always find something, and it is a matter of just making people think a little different. And if you tell them that, they're never going to buy into it. But if you help them, it's a huge outcome,
Yeah, it's a cliche, but I learned there was a quick story that, years ago. There's a metaphor, and he was the conductor of the Boston Philharmonic.
Okay.
And his name is Xander, and his wife was a coach. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but they had this wonderful video that I used a lot in leadership, because it's really about again, kind of the things that I've said, empowering other people. But they call what you just described a downward spiral. And when you have a downward spiral of negativity, there's no possibility, right? There's none. When you're criticizing other people, you can't. That's not going to improve a relationship. I can't change that person. I can influence them, right, by how I respond. But telling people what to do, and it just doesn't work. So why go there?
Yeah, 100%. Now, you emphasize that people don't change unless they change their thoughts and beliefs. So what strategies do you use to help leaders shift their mindset and overcome limited beliefs?
Well, generally just having a conversation with them about where they are and why aren't they there. The reason they're not there is because they don't believe they can get there most of the time. Or their thinking is kind of, they're blaming somebody else. Or it's, I don't have the resources, or, there's always an excuse. I hate to use that term. There's always well, my son, when he was little, he great line. He goes, Dad, it's not an excuse, it's a reason. I don't know, man, they sound pretty close together to me. You have to get, not have to, but our mind is so powerful, we can talk ourselves into or out of anything. when people say they're so busy, I'm so busy, I don't have time for this, I don't have time for this. I said, well, you got time for fantasy football, don't you? So we make time for the things that are important.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so rather than tell them, the question is, do you want it or not? And you will show me. So when I coach people, first of all, I coach for 90 days because if you don't do the work, I'm not going to work with you. And when we agree on what we're going to do after we go through these dialogues and the coaching questionnaire and so forth and so on, I'm not holding you responsible. I'm not holding you accountable. You're an adult. So you are responsible for keeping me updated on your progress. I'm not chasing you down. And that's completely different from the corporate environment. And so you either opt in or you opt out. Because you said you were going to do these things. So it's a want to. There's a great quote by a basketball coach. You can't make people do things, but you can only inspire them to change themselves. Mm-hmm. And some people just don't. And there's a great article. I think his name is Manson, written years ago. It's the most important question of your life, which is, how much pain do you want? Because to do something you don't have, you must do something you've never done, mm-hmm. which means I got to replace something, or I got to create a new habit, or I got to start doing something or stop doing something. So ultimately, it's not my decision. I mean, I just ask people, what do you want to do? Well, I want this. Okay, well, how long have you wanted that? Well, I don't know. Well, why haven't you done anything? Well, you get all the stories, and I'm cutting to the chase. I said, you don't want it. So I don't have a secret bullet or a secret formula. You have to decide.
Yeah.
How important is this?
Right. So like you're not making them accountable, but in a way you're kind of making them accountable by you have to answer this question for yourself.
Well, on the coaching questionnaire that I have, there's the goofy questions, but I'm really looking for some of those answers. Where are you? Where do you want to be? Why aren't you there? What's next? What's stopping you? What's the most difficult thing you've done in your life? I'm looking for perseverance and persistence.
Totally makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, I guess now you talk about the cost of not doing what you want. So can you elaborate on the concept and how it impacts leaders and organizations?
It's really an individual decision, mm-hmm. Or an analysis, however you want to get people to move. Right. If you ask someone, what's it costing you to not sell more at your job? Right. The answer might be, well, I don't make as much money, and I don't get promoted, but a lot of people in that environment, they're comfortable. They're in that zone that not have to work too hard, etc. Right. Well, there's a company that I met years ago. It's called Gaping Void, and they're a cultural company, and they do culture through artwork. Okay. And they have and I probably got 200 of those pictures. And there's one of a ship that's burning, and it says nothing happens until the ship has burned. So we have all seen people who go on a performance plan, they correct, they get off the plan, and they go back to where they were. So they didn't really want to do it, they just had to do it. Mm-hmm. So the cost of not doing it is not a logical exercise. It's an emotional exercise. It's a visceral exercise. So, for example, what is it costing you in your career? And most people go, well, I don't get the promotion, as I said, or I don't get paid. Well, that's not enough, because there's no emotional connection to that. Right. So, okay, well, what if I might get fired? lose my job, lose my health insurance. Based on your savings, could get kicked out of my house, be repossessed. I mean, you have to, so that's just your career.
Right.
Well, it's part of your family.
Right.
It's part of your finances. So I have, so there's 4 or 5 of those categories that I take people through. Because until the ship is burned, something is stopping people. Some people, they just don't want to do it. Well, then why hire a coach?
Right.
Right?
No, makes total sense.
Yeah, I mean, you hire a coach to do things that, like if you're working out, we're all not, a professional athlete like a Michael Jordan or somebody who can go in the gym and push themselves for hours and hours and hours. Most people can't do that. They need somebody, yelling at them,
Yeah.
helping them some way. So that's the cost of not doing it. And, I won't say that it changes things 100% of the time. A lot of times people go, I guess I don't really want to do this.
But at least now they know, so they don't
Well,
have
now
to
they
keep-
know, and that's fine. And that's that, but that's a choice.
Right.
But it's another resource. In the Coach You First roadmap I have,
Right.
it's basically we help people get out of the box immediately. So in the first few hours, we can say, what is the problem you want to fix?
Right.
The real problem, and the issue is not the issue. What are your barriers? And what simple steps could you take that would get you closer to your goal?
Yeah.
So they can get started, and they also kind of get acclimated to this thinking thing.
Right.
And then, we continue to do that. People don't. It's not a linear progress, as you know.
Right.
But we have 5 other acts. We have 5 other resources that help support overcoming barriers. One is our behavioral profile, the not, what is it costing you to not do it?
Right.
Building a peer group around you, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
So that's one approach, because you don't know which one's going to click.
Right. Oh,
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Now tell us, managing conflict, it's a key aspect of leadership. So what
Mhm.
techniques do you recommend to leaders to handle conflict effectively while maintaining influence?
Yeah. Well, I actually have a document called Managing Difficult Conversations.
Okay.
And the essence of that is when you have conflict, whether it's you and the individual or 2 people,
Right.
is that you lay out, Patricia, let's talk. I have a couple challenges with you. Here are my concerns, X, Y, Z, and then you give examples in situations. Try not to be accusatory. It's kind of hard not to do. This is how I see it. Does that make sense? What is your view?
Right.
Right. And so that's a back and forth depending on how deep the conflict is.
Right.
But it's at least a template. And then the outcome is, okay, well, what could I do differently? Me. What could you do differently?
Right.
And then have a conversation about ultimately what's the outcome here?
Okay.
What are we trying to achieve? So it's a template for at least having a conversation that's not confrontational.
Right.
Problem is, what happens when you have conflict? We have conflict.
Right.
We wait. We want to avoid it. And by then, everybody's bad. So at least it's a start. And the manager, one of the things that really bugs me is, and you've, I'm sure, experienced this, that 2 managers who have, I don't know, 6 or 8 people there, and or someone comes to you and says, "Hey, I'm having a problem with this with my manager," and they go, "Well, why don't you just go down and sit down and have a conversation with them?"
Right.
It doesn't work. You don't talk to a superior and go, "Hey, I don't like you."
Yeah.
So you try to be an adult.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's definitely perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a template that I use.
Okay. Now, you mentioned uncovering motivating needs as a crucial part of leadership. So, how could leaders identify and address these needs in themselves and their teams?
Well, again, when you look at teams, it's really just a group of individuals,
Right.
right? Um, Hopefully moving in unison, herding cats,
Right.
right? But from the behavioral profile tells us a lot of different things. It tells us a need. Well, it measures. I'll tell you the need for control over people and things. So that's either independent, confident, and self-reliant, or more amiable and supportive. Now, sociability is a measurement of the need to be included. People who are high social need to be included. So they like affirmation, public affirmation, inclusion. Lower people who have less of a need to be included are quiet, reserved, and introspective. So they like private recognition.
Right.
So each of those, and there's more traits, but each of those have a motivating need. So as I just mentioned, like for example, it measures the need for order and structure. Okay, high detail people are precise, accurate, and thorough. So, and low detail people have less of a need, right, for information. So, high detail people are tactical. Low detail people are strategic. I'm a low detail guy. I'm a big picture person. Just kind of tell me what you want. I'll figure it out. But so leave me alone. So, and I'll figure it out. Give me what I think I need. I mean, you got to supervise me probably, but high detail people need information. They need data. They need the context, not only what's to be delivered, but the context that they play in the bigger role. That's a motivating need. So if you are micromanaging me and you don't know my profile, that is not going to work.
Right.
Eventually, we're going to have a conversation. This doesn't work for me, or maybe I just quit. If I'm quiet, reserved, and introspective, and I keep calling on you in meetings and you don't say anything, then I think as a manager, you don't want to play. You're not a participant,
Right.
or you're disengaged, and they're just wrong. It's just a uninformed decision by a person who doesn't have much emotional intelligence, or you. So, if you don't have that information, I don't know how people do it. I mean, people who are an executive or manager, et cetera, there's intuition in people, but they typically don't connect that to their decisions and their actions.
And it all starts with the conversation.
Yeah.
Now, tell us, what does crossing the chasm mean in the context of leadership, and how can leaders bridge the gap to reach the next level of influence?
Well, that is going from individual contributor to a leader of others.
Okay.
And crossing that chasm is people are not equipped for that. They don't train people for that. Right. So people have spent, as you talked when you started, as a receptionist, and you went to another position. When you start managing people, they didn't tell you. You didn't go to how do you manage people school.
Yeah.
You just had to figure it out. Well, you can't. Most people continue to manage as they manage other people like they did themselves. So they tell people what to do, right? And their boss is saying, "Oh, did you do this? Did you do that? Is that in? Give me the spreadsheet, etc." So they're managing tasks. They're not managing people, and that creates a whole another kind of breaking point, if you will, in their success and their people's success. So most people just don't have any tools or resources to do that.
Right.
The biggest shift, and most managers don't, depending upon the environment, hire a coach for that person, right? They just go, well, okay, well, Johnny's good, let's go. Yeah. So that's the difference. And even senior leaders in large organizations are still under the thumb of the budget, right? And so they don't. when I got into these large insurance companies, it was remarkable to me that these people who were, managing hundreds and hundreds of people couldn't make a $10,000 decision.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but again, I just go back to a simple premise, which is if you're managing other people, your job is to live up to whatever promise you made them when you hired them, if you hired them, and to give them every opportunity for them to be successful with the tools and the resources. And you're probably familiar with the book, First Break All the Rules from years ago, but it's give them the tools and the resources and let them do their job. And they either can do it or they don't. And if they can't do it, that's maybe they're not a fit. That's okay.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, can you explain the My Future Self exercise and how it helps leaders visualize and work towards their best self?
Yeah, it's about creating something that you would aspire to be or you're not. Right? We all have gaps in who we want to become. And so instead of a New Year's resolution to lose weight, maybe I could become more patient, more tolerant, more loving, more forgiving. Maybe, volunteer, spend less time on social media. How could I improve the quality of my life or my relationship? How could I repair a strained relationship? Because most New Year's resolutions, to be honest with you, are all about me, aren't they?
Yeah.
Right? Which we don't even do. So I think there's a guy who always was out here, was a coach and does a networking group, but he always talked about being just being an even better human.
Right.
So that's your future self. I mean, who do you want to become? I mean, do you even have any goals? I always say, I've got this saying, it's like with culture, like companies have a culture.
Right.
They may not know it. And 9 times out of 10, it was by default.
Yeah.
It was by design. So it's about living, at least maybe reflecting on that part of your life, on who you want to become. So that's one of those exercises.
Okay, good stuff though.
Yeah.
Now, anything else you want to talk about that we didn't already cover?
I think we've covered a lot. I've really talked much. I guess that's my job, but no, I would like to. I have a couple things that I would like to share. I think I mentioned that I don't have that website up. Hopefully, I could maybe get you that link here in the next few days. And I don't know how you would get that out, but
okay.
But I have what I call a quick look at solving problems.
Okay.
And it talks about the 4 rhythms of Coach You First in this mindset change. And then it's a quick exercise. Okay, what would be one challenge or problem that you would want to solve? Right?
Okay.
And what is stopping you from fixing this problem that you have control over?
Right.
And then what 3 simple solutions would break those barriers? Right? You have to break a barrier to solve a problem. You don't solve the problem. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I'd like to offer those to anybody who I'll just provide you a link.
Okay.
They could go to the link. They can just download those, use those, and if they have, or take them. And if they have questions, I'd be happy to answer it. I'd like to get this out to people who, want to take personal responsibility for their own development.
Nice.
Yeah.
Now, how could people get in contact with you or learn more about you and your business?
Well, again, I can send you the link to our the webpage.
Okay.
And to Coach You First in these downloads. I'll give you my phone number, which is 602-359-2685. My email is Trent Smock at peoplefirst.co, not .com. And I'd certainly be happy to talk to anybody who has any interest in just chatting or learning more about personal development, and happy to help them anyway, whether they use our services or not.
Thanks. Well, thank you again for being on the show. Again, that was Trent Smock. So thanks for listening to Real Conversations with Patricia. Never miss an episode by subscribing to the channel. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Real Conversations with Patricia, talking with some of the most brilliant minds on their journey to success and their recommended strategies. Please leave your feedback and visit pristineadvisors.com to get the latest and greatest business advisement on the planet. Feel free to let me know your thoughts, suggestions, and anything else you'd like me to cover. Together, we can make success happen for all.